powerful don't build connections with everyone. They connect with people who understand how the game actually works. And right now, most people are standing outside that world, confused about why opportunities never reach them, why doors stay locked, why men with less intelligence, less talent, and less discipline somehow end up in rooms they can't access. It's not luck, it's not fairness, and it's definitely not talent alone. There are laws that govern influence, unspoken rules that decide who becomes unforgettable and who disappears into the background forever. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. The elite still operate by these principles today. They just never explain them publicly. These rules are passed quietly through circles of power, inside boardrooms, private dinners, closed networks, and relationships most people never even see. What you're about to hear will permanently change how you view conversations, relationships, influence, and status itself. These are 13 laws, 13 principles that shape access, power, and social survival. Listen carefully, because once you understand them, you stop moving through the world like everyone else. Law 1. Become useful before you become close. This is the first thing most people completely misunderstand about powerful individuals. They think connection comes from being liked, from being charismatic, from impressing people with personality or ambition. Wrong. Powerful people care about one thing first: utility. What can you do? What problem can you solve? What pressure can you remove from their life? Nobody at the top is searching for another person asking for favors. They already deal with endless people who want access, opportunities, money, introductions, validation, attention. The moment you approach them from a position of need, you immediately lower your value. Need creates weakness. Desperation is visible, and powerful people detect it instantly. That's why the smartest move is the opposite of what most people do. Stop focusing on what they can give you. Start focusing on what you can provide them. Study them before you approach them. Understand their world. Learn their business. Identify the stress points in their life, their company, their reputation, or their environment. Then become useful, not emotionally useful, strategically useful. The person who removes problems becomes memorable very quickly. This is how real access begins, not by asking for attention, but by becoming valuable enough that attention naturally moves toward you. The desperate man says, "Can you help me?" The strategic man says nothing. He quietly becomes difficult to ignore, and that changes everything. Because once someone powerful associates your presence with ease, solutions, results, or relief, you stop being another outsider. You become an asset, and assets are protected. Remember this carefully. The powerful rarely remember the people who talked the most, but they never forget the people who made life easier. That is your first currency in the world of influence. Use it wisely. Law 2. Never reveal your full hand. The moment people fully understand you, you lose leverage. Mystery creates power. Predictability destroys it. Most people reveal too much, too quickly. They overshare their plans, their emotions, their insecurities, their ambitions, their next move, sometimes without anyone even asking. And they think this creates connection. In reality, it creates vulnerability, because every piece of information you reveal can eventually be used against you. Your goals can be blocked. Your weaknesses can be exploited. Your plans can be copied. Your emotions can be manipulated. This is why powerful individuals stay controlled with information. Watch them carefully. They rarely say more than necessary. They allow people to see only what benefits them, nothing more. That doesn't mean becoming cold or robotic. It means becoming disciplined. You do not owe everyone complete access to your mind. You do not need to explain every decision. You do not need to reveal every ambition. Sometimes, silence is smarter than honesty. When people cannot fully read you, they become cautious around you. They hesitate, they analyze, they wonder what you know, what you think, what your next move might be. That uncertainty creates influence. A man who is completely understood becomes easy to predict, and predictable people are easy to control. So learn to pause before speaking. Learn to answer without revealing everything. Learn to redirect conversations instead of exposing yourself unnecessarily. The strongest people in the room are often the quietest. While everyone else is trying to be seen, they're observing. While others are explaining themselves, they're gathering information. That is power. Hold your cards close. Not because you fear people, but because information is leverage. And leverage should never be given away freely. Law 3. Enter through the side door. Most people approach power the obvious way, and that's exactly why they fail. They chase the front entrance, the direct path, the visible opportunity that everyone else is already fighting over. But the front door is protected. It has gatekeepers, assistants, managers, filters, layers of protection designed to keep ordinary people out. If you approach like everyone else, you'll receive the same outcome everyone else receives. Rejection. The smart man thinks differently. He looks for the side entrance. Every powerful person has an ecosystem around them. Friends, business partners, team members, advisors, assistants, inner circles. Trusted relationships that are less guarded than the individual at the center. That's where access usually exists. Not through force. Through positioning. Study the people around them. Understand who they trust. Notice who has influence behind the scenes. Then build relationships naturally within those spaces first. This is patience used strategically. Instead of demanding immediate access, you slowly become familiar within their world. Your name begins appearing in conversations before you ever enter the room yourself. And when that finally happens, you're no longer a stranger. You are already associated with trust. That changes the entire dynamic. The impatient man runs toward the gate and wonders why it never opens. The strategic man becomes known quietly until the gate opens for him automatically. That is the difference. Never underestimate indirect paths. In many cases, the side door is the real entrance. Law 4. Mirror their world, not your own. One of the fastest ways to lose influence is forcing your reality onto someone else, especially someone powerful. Most people make this mistake constantly. They enter conversations trying to explain themselves, their struggles, their opinions, their worldview, assuming the other person should naturally relate. But powerful people are focused on their own environment, their own priorities, and their own perspective. If you want connection, you must first understand their frame. This is where adaptation becomes critical. Study how they communicate. Observe their pace, their energy, their priorities, the subjects they care about, the language they naturally use. Then adjust, not in an obvious way, subtly, because when someone feels understood, they become comfortable around you very quickly. People naturally trust reflections of themselves. That's human psychology. When you mirror someone skillfully, they feel aligned with you without even realizing why. Their guard lowers. The conversation flows more naturally. The connection feels effortless. But this requires awareness. You must listen more carefully than most people ever do. Notice patterns. Notice emotional reactions. Notice what excites them and what drains them. Then meet them inside their world instead of forcing them into yours. This is not about becoming fake. It's about becoming adaptable. And adaptability is one of the highest forms of intelligence. Rigid people rarely rise. Flexible people move through every environment smoothly. The goal is not to lose yourself. The goal is to understand how influence actually works. Because the people who succeed socially are rarely the loudest or most authentic in every moment. They are usually the most calibrated. The people who know how to read a room, adjust their energy, and create comfort without effort. That is a skill, and like every skill, it can be mastered. Law 5. Master the art of selective availability. The more available you are, the less valuable you appear. That truth makes people uncomfortable, but human psychology has always worked this way. People chase what feels scarce, they value what seems limited, and they often ignore what is constantly available to them. Most men destroy their own value without realizing it. They respond instantly every time. They always say yes. They make themselves endlessly accessible, believing this proves loyalty, commitment, or importance. In reality, it communicates something very different. It says your time has no scarcity. It says you have no priorities beyond them. It says your world stops the moment they call, and powerful people notice this immediately. The man who is always available is rarely respected, because availability without boundaries creates familiarity, and too much familiarity destroys perceived value. Selective availability changes the entire dynamic. It tells people your attention must be earned, that your time matters, that your presence is not automatic. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant, cold, or unreliable. It means becoming intentional. Not every message deserves an instant response. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every opportunity deserves your energy. Create space. Let people experience your absence sometimes. Because absence creates perspective. When you are constantly present, people adapt to your existence and stop appreciating it. But when your presence becomes less predictable, your value increases naturally. This is the psychology of scarcity. And scarcity creates attraction. The strongest people understand this instinctively. They are warm when present, but they never become overly accessible. Their energy feels controlled, measured, balanced. That restraint creates respect. You must learn to tolerate silence and distance without chasing reassurance. Most people panic the moment attention decreases. They immediately reach outward, trying to regain validation. That reaction weakens their position. The disciplined person remains composed. He understands that influence grows when people have room to think about you, room to notice your absence, room to wonder. This is how the dynamic shifts. Instead of constantly pursuing attention, you become someone whose attention carries weight. Be present enough to matter, absent enough to be valued. That balance changes everything. Law 6. Speak less than necessary. Most people talk too much because silence makes them uncomfortable. They explain too much, reveal too much, react too quickly, and with every unnecessary word, they slowly surrender control. Powerful people understand something most others never learn. Silence creates pressure. The person who speaks the least often controls the emotional rhythm of the conversation. Watch confident people closely. They don't rush to fill every silence. They pause, they think, they allow moments to breathe before responding. That composure creates authority. Meanwhile, insecure people constantly feel the need to prove themselves through words. They over-explain their decisions. They talk to gain approval. They reveal their emotions without restraint. And in doing so, they expose themselves completely. Every extra sentence gives away information. Your fears, your insecurities, your intentions, your emotional state. The less disciplined your speech becomes, the easier you are to read. This is why silence is powerful. When you speak less, other people begin speaking more. They reveal things unintentionally. They expose emotions, motivations, insecurities, frustrations. Meanwhile, you remain composed and observant. That is leverage. Silence also creates mystery. People begin analyzing you instead of dismissing you. Your words gain weight because they become rare instead of constant. A man who talks endlessly eventually becomes background noise. A man who speaks carefully becomes memorable, but mastering this law requires emotional control. You must become comfortable with pauses, comfortable with eye contact, comfortable allowing tension to exist without rushing to dissolve it. Most people cannot do this. That's why silence intimidates them. The disciplined man says only what needs to be said, nothing more. His words become sharper because they are intentional, and intentional words carry power. Law 7. Create mutual enemies. Nothing unites people faster than shared opposition. This is ancient human psychology. Tribes have always bonded through common threats. People trust those who stand beside them against something they both dislike, fear, or oppose. That instinct still controls modern relationships. The powerful are constantly battling something. Competitors, critics, rivals, threats to their reputation, threats to their position, threats to their influence. If you understand what someone is fighting against, you understand how to align with them quickly. This does not mean creating unnecessary drama or inventing conflict. It means identifying real opposition that already exists and recognizing where your interests naturally overlap. When two people share the same enemy, they begin seeing each other as allies instead of strangers. That changes the relationship immediately. The strongest alliances are often built through shared struggle, not shared entertainment. People forget pleasant conversations. They remember battles. This is why shared adversity creates deeper loyalty than casual connection ever can. But this law requires intelligence. Never align yourself carelessly. Never create enemies stronger than you can handle. And never fake opposition simply to gain approval. People eventually sense false alignment, and once trust disappears, access disappears with it. The key is authenticity. Find areas where your interests genuinely overlap with theirs. Understand what frustrates them. Understand what threatens their goals. Then position yourself naturally within that same direction. When people feel you are fighting beside them instead of asking from them, your value increases dramatically. You stop looking like an outsider seeking access. You start looking like part of the tribe, and tribes protect their own. Law 8. Never outshine the master. This law destroys more ambitious people than almost any other, because ego blinds them. You may be smarter than the person above you, more talented, more creative, more capable. But the moment you make powerful people feel inferior, you become dangerous in their eyes, and dangerous people get removed. This is one of the hardest realities to accept about power dynamics. People at the top often tie their identity to superiority. Their confidence, status, and influence are built around feeling exceptional. When someone beneath them appears too impressive too quickly, insecurity activates immediately. Even if they smile externally, internally, they begin seeing you as competition. And once that happens, your access becomes fragile. The intelligent person understands positioning. He does not weaken himself. He controls perception. He allows his talents to support the leader instead of threatening the leader. This requires patience and emotional maturity. Your ego will constantly demand recognition. It will want credit, validation, public acknowledgement. Control it. The long game matters more. Many brilliant people destroy opportunities simply because they couldn't resist proving they were the smartest person in the room. That is not power. That is insecurity disguised as confidence. Real power is strategic. Sometimes the wisest move is allowing someone else to feel important while you quietly strengthen your position behind the scenes. History is full of advisors who influenced kings without needing the throne themselves. They understood that proximity to power often creates more opportunity than direct confrontation with it. Let your work elevate the people above you. Make them feel stronger in your presence, not threatened. Because the moment they associate you with humiliation or insecurity, they begin planning your removal. Protect their ego until your own position becomes untouchable. Then your value speaks for itself. Law 9. Make others come to you. The person who chases excessively always loses leverage. This applies to business, relationships, networking, and influence itself. When you constantly pursue people, you signal imbalance. You communicate that they possess value you lack. That instantly lowers your position. Most people spend their lives chasing attention, chasing approval, chasing opportunities, chasing validation. And because they chase constantly, they never become magnetic. The strategic person operates differently. Instead of chasing endlessly, he builds value. He develops skill, results, reputation, competence, presence. He becomes excellent enough that attention naturally begins moving toward him. This is attraction through value instead of pursuit through desperation. Think about it carefully. The people everyone wants access to are usually not running around begging for attention. Their work, reputation, and results create curiosity automatically. That is the position you want. Not forcing doors open. Becoming someone doors naturally open for. This requires patience because attraction takes longer than chasing, but it creates far stronger positioning. Build something undeniable. Create visible excellence. Develop skills people cannot easily replace. Let your name travel through conversations before you enter the room yourself. Because once people begin seeking you out, the dynamic changes completely. Now conversations happen on equal ground. Now opportunities arrive differently. Now your presence carries weight before you even speak. The magnetic man does not beg for attention. His value creates gravity, and gravity pulls everything toward it. Law 10. Guard your reputation with your life. You can lose money and recover from it. You can lose opportunities and create new ones. But once your reputation collapses, rebuilding trust becomes one of the hardest battles you will ever face. In the world of influence, reputation is everything. It speaks before you enter the room. People decide how to treat you long before they meet you personally. They listen to stories, opinions, impressions, associations, whispers from others who claim to know you. And once a perception forms, changing it becomes extremely difficult. This is why powerful people obsess over image and positioning. They understand that perception shapes reality. A strong reputation opens doors that skill alone cannot open. A weak reputation closes doors before conversations even begin. You must become intentional about how people experience you. Be reliable. Be disciplined. Be consistent. Do not behave emotionally in public moments that can permanently damage how others see you. One careless action can undo years of effort. And remember this clearly, people judge you by association too. The people around you affect your image, whether you like it or not. If you constantly surround yourself with chaos, weakness, irresponsibility, or low standards, eventually those qualities become attached to your name. Protect your circle carefully. At the same time, never ignore attacks on your reputation. Weak people hope lies disappear on their own. Strategic people address problems quickly before they spread. In social dynamics, truth alone is not enough. Perception moves faster than facts. That's why reputation must be guarded aggressively. Your name is a form of currency. Once people trust it, opportunities begin appearing naturally. But once people doubt it, even your strengths stop mattering. Protect your reputation like your future depends on it, because often it does. Law 11. Learn to use enemies. Most people waste enormous energy hating their enemies. They become emotional, obsessed, distracted, and eventually their hatred consumes more energy than the enemy ever did. Smart people think differently. They understand that enemies can be useful. In fact, enemies often reveal truths your friends never will. An enemy points directly toward your weaknesses. They expose vulnerabilities, blind spots, flaws in your strategy, flaws in your behavior, flaws in your thinking. Comfort hides weakness. Opposition exposes it. Without resistance, people become soft, careless, overconfident. Enemies force awareness. They force growth. But there's another level to this law. Sometimes enemies possess resources, intelligence, skills, or influence that become far more valuable alive than destroyed. The emotional man wants revenge. The strategic man wants advantage. Those are very different mindsets. History is full of former rivals who eventually became powerful allies because both sides realized cooperation created more benefit than continued conflict. That requires emotional discipline. You cannot operate from ego all the time. Not every enemy must be destroyed. Some should be studied, some should be contained, and some should eventually be converted. When a former enemy becomes loyal to you, the loyalty is often stronger than loyalty from someone who never opposed you at all, because they understand your strength directly. The powerful respect people who remain composed under opposition, but they lose respect quickly for people controlled entirely by emotion and revenge. Do not let enemies consume your focus. Use them, learn from them, leverage them when possible, and remember this carefully. A man who cannot control his emotions around enemies will eventually destroy himself without help from anyone else. Law 12. Appeal to self-interest, never to mercy. This is one of the coldest truths about human nature. People act primarily according to self-interest, not fairness, not emotion, not morality, self-interest. Most people fail in negotiations and relationships because they focus entirely on their own needs. They explain why they deserve help, why they are struggling, why someone should feel sympathy for them. But powerful people rarely respond to emotional pleading. Why? Because they think transactionally. Before making decisions, they ask one question: what do I gain from this? If you cannot answer that question clearly, your chances immediately decrease. This is why emotional begging almost never works with powerful individuals. They respect value, leverage, incentives, outcomes, and opportunity. So stop approaching people from the perspective of what you need. Start framing things around what benefits them. If you want support, explain the upside for them. If you want an opportunity, explain the value you create. If you want access, demonstrate the advantage they receive from opening the door. This shift changes everything, because now you no longer sound dependent. You sound useful, and usefulness always carries more power than sympathy. Understand this clearly. Even generosity often comes from self-interest. Sometimes people help because it strengthens their image. Sometimes because it builds loyalty. Sometimes because it makes them feel powerful. Human beings are driven by incentives whether they admit it or not. Once you accept this reality, you stop wasting energy on emotional appeals and start building stronger propositions. The weak ask for mercy. The strategic offer opportunity. One creates pity, the other creates respect. Learn the difference. Law 13. Think as you like, but behave like others. This law protects you from unnecessary resistance. Most people expose every thought they have immediately. Every opinion, every disagreement, every unconventional belief. And because of that, they create enemies everywhere they go. The world punishes visible nonconformity much faster than people realize. You may think differently. You may see through social games. You may understand truths that others refuse to acknowledge. But broadcasting every thought publicly is rarely intelligent. The powerful understand camouflage. They blend in when necessary. They know how to move through environments without attracting unnecessary attention to themselves. Externally, they appear socially calibrated, appropriate, controlled, acceptable. Internally, their real calculations continue quietly. This is not hypocrisy. It is strategy. The man who constantly announces how different he is becomes predictable. He attracts resistance, criticism, and unnecessary conflict before he has enough power to withstand it.